Chair, members of the Pension Committee.
Thank you. Any other declarations? Thank you. We're moving on to agenda item 2, which is the minutes of the meeting held on 24th of June. Members agree that I should sign those minutes? Thank you. Thank you. Agenda item 3 is the Grant Thornton Annual Governance Report, and I'm going to ask Greg Thomas to speak to the report. Thank you, Mike.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Chair, this is in your supplementary papers, and probably best for members to turn to page 5. And I'll just take you briefly through the reports, highlight some of the key findings from the audit, and then take any questions at the end. Just in terms of the reports on page 5, it flags up the fact that during the audit we didn't have to change our audit plan, which we communicated to you earlier this year. It also flags up a couple of bullet points, things that just need finishing off, so the final version of the financial statements needs reviewing. We will obtain and review the management letter of representation after the Audit and Risk Management Committee on Wednesday night, and then we do a final post-balance sheet against review up to the date of signing the opinion, which I'm expecting to be probably later this week. This report is for you to note and recommend to the Audit and Risk Management Committee, who take the final decision on the overall set of statements which are encapsulated within the Royal Council statements on Wednesday. Just to flag up the main points then on the right-hand side of page 5, I am envisaging issuing an unqualified opinion on the fund statements. There is one unadjusted error in the financial statements of 3.194 million, which management have responded to on the basis that it's not a material amount in the context of the net assets of the fund being over 5.8 billion, and we're happy to accept that for members to agree that tonight. There are a number of other changes to the statements you previously saw, particularly around disclosures, but these are relatively minor in nature. One around disclosure of key management personnel is the key one that's sort of flagged later on page 7. So there's a bit more detail later in the report. And as it says at the bottom of that page, I'd just like to record our appreciation to officers and the finance team for their help during the audit, which is concluded on time this year and ahead of where we've been in the past. So thanks to them. Just in terms of the rest of the report then, page 7 picks up some of the findings that I've already mentioned, and then the rest of the report goes on to talk about significant risks which were all identified in the plan. And basically the left-hand side says what the risk was, and the right-hand side says, well, we've got our assurance from the work that we've undertaken during the audit process. I maybe just want to pick up on page 9. One of the key changes during the year was the change and transfer of £1.4 billion worth of funds between different fund managers, and we've done work around that and gained enough assurance to be able to assure you in the opinion that there's nothing you need to report back to you. So there's a number of items there which are alluded to in terms of risk, and no significant matters to report back. On page 11, we're required to look at your accounting policies and estimates and judgments, and again, there's no issues for us to report back to members. Page 12 is the unadjusted misstatements around 3.194 million. Page 13 is a number of disclosure changes that I alluded to before, which have been made. And over on page 14, there are some other things we need to report back to members around fraud, laws and regulations, the written representations around the letter of representation. And just to pick up on one point in item 1 on that page, we have, well, there's two points in the commentary box. We wrote earlier in the year to the Chair of the Risk Management Committee asking for certain assurances around fraud or certain comments. We've now received that back, that letter, so that will be ticked off. And then the second item is just flagging up with members that the fund did have a potential fraud. There is a number of issues in the sector about what's called pensions liberation fraud, where a person can declare that they want to transfer their pension overseas, and that can happen, but the fund only let those funds go on the basis of a check against a list that the HMRC actually utilised to say that these agencies are actually valid agencies that you can transfer those funds to. So on the basis of such a request, the fund did actually transfer some monies to an organisation called Danica. When the check had been done by the fund against the list, there was an organisation on that list called Danica, but it was Danica Swedish Holdings rather than just Danica, and it does look like that Danica Swedish Holdings was in fact potentially a fraudulent organisation. Now the fund have been in discussion, I think, appealing, because potentially if HMRC can't recover those funds from the individuals or the body, then they can look into the funds from the fund. I think the total amount is potentially £60,000, but £60,000. But as I say, the fund are appealing that, and Paddy may well speak in a bit more detail about that later on. In terms of the rest of the report, section 3, page 15-16 is our fees, which is set by the Audit Commission. Section 5 is communication in other audit matters, and then the appendices are the opinion which will be discussed and agreed on Wednesday night with the Risk Management Committee. The Chair, to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Mike. Okay, members, comments, questions, views? Okay, can I thank you, Mike, on behalf of the committee for the annual audit findings, and we note the findings, which will now go on to our Audit and Risk Management Committee. I know Paddy is going to pick up on some of the issues that you've alluded to under items 4 and 5, so I will move on to item 4 now. Thank you, Paddy.
Thank you, Chair. First, this report is to provide members with the draft annual report from 2012-13 and the draft report to the members. Background to the issues set out the legislative framework for this annual report. There is a draft report that is subject to the final audit agreement and the final agreement. It is substantially put to the report is now. So without any questions, and that leads on to report 5.
I would ask, on 7.1, there are non-financial implications that are not arising directly from this report. What does directly mean? So what indirect consequences are there?
I think what that's saying is that this report asks members to note the annual report. There is a budget for the production of the annual report in the fund's main budget, and obviously resources will come from that. But this report does not incur any additional expenditure, so that therefore they're not arising directly. Although maybe you could note that there are financial costs budgeted for in the production of the report.
Okay, any other comments or questions? The recommendation is that members approve the draft annual report of the Merseyside Pension Fund application. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Okay. Okay, moving on to agenda item 5, statement to the Council. Paddy.
Thank you, Chair. Again, the text of this report is to present members with the audit statements of the Council, which are contained within the annual report of the Council as distributed. And to respond to the report from Grant Morrison. The background into the issues go through the audit process is good, which Mike's contributed to it. It is to be noted in the report of the Council, and then go to the Audit and Risk Management Committee on Wednesday for the final approval ahead of the final audit sign-off. And it's envisaged that there will be an unqualified opinion on the pension fund's accounts. Moving on to the recommendations will follow, but moving on to the appendix that sets out the response to the audit report. The main item was the unadjusted restatement of 3.194 million for property rental income. I think just to maybe explain the reason for this treatment. And first, I would like to state that we the pension fund do not view for 1 million as an immaterial amount of money. The immateriality is set out in the context of the nearly £6 billion pension fund. It's a materiality threshold that's agreed with the auditors in advance of the audit process. And it's just representation of the large size of the value of the fund, and it's certainly not a consideration of the South weighing into £3 million in the material amount of money. One of the reasons we're not misstating this is that it's an understatement of the fund rather than an overstatement, and we're always more comfortable with prudence of our statements. It was identified at the end of the audit process, and it was then noticed to change various financial statements and notes. I would, however, give some reassurance that the amount of money was not only accounted for, it was within the net liabilities of the fund, and it had not been coded fully. And it's really this reason why we've not just at this stage with the view of implementing the full process. We received notification from agents' balances which are outside the fund from the property managing agency, CBRE, and these are then input into the fund's accounting systems. And rather than just make these adjustments later on into the process, we can set up a full review process. The internal property manager will be doing the reports that we receive from CBRE and reconciling that to the accounts produced in the council's financial system. We feel this will be a comprehensive solution to the problem and prevent any such reoccurrences. Moving on to item 3, recommendations relating to misclassifications and disclosure changes. Management agreed the changes the grant Thornton proposed with regards to notifications of key management personnel and remuneration, and some changes to the disclosure of financial risk. Item 4, recommendations relating to all matters of stated the most significant issues. And again, just referring to the item on the fraud in the Danica incident, it was fully investigated at the time of the fund. The total amount involved is payments of £37,000 and £111,000 with a potential 55% tax charge, which we have appealed to HMRC. We felt that the list of approved providers had a lack of clarity. There was both the family history and the fact that names were taken off within 2 days. This appeal is still ongoing, and we're optimistic it will be successful. And in response, we encourage to all members, applications warning members of the dangers of pension liberation. It is a massive concern for the members because there are significant charges levied by these firms for giving people the opportunity to receive a capital sum of their pension in advance when they are due. So the communication exercise we hope will prevent occurrences for this, and we certainly improve procedures for checking the HMRC list. I think with that, I know the comments to make in response to the audit report and my questions.
Thanks, Paddy. Questions, comments? Certainly of concern about, you mentioned some of, in your report, Mike, you said 60,000, you said 111,000 and 30 something thousand. Are you talking about the liability to the fund is 60%, 60,000? Yeah, I think, just for my own clarification there.
Like 50% charge is actually against the member. Some of the subject to a 40% charge, but the HMRC do recover 55%. It will be reduced down to 15% against the fund. But we are actually appealing against this charge because HMRC did actually register this company around them with a certificate as a recognised scheme, and then 2 days later remove the registration process. So we haven't actually been levied the charge yet, but we're just waiting for HMRC to respond to our appeal.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, right, well, the recommendations are on page 34, 12.1 to 12.3. Are committee happy to agree those recommendations?
Agreed.
Thank you.
This report updates members on a number of consultations on scheme reform and also covers the guarantee that has been issued by the Department for Education to protect the funds from unrecoverable debt and academy closures. Section 2.2 to 4 refers to the consultation on the third provision of the benefit regulations, which are now in a working format and provide insight of how the new scheme will look and operate. A copy of the response is attached as Appendix 1 to the report and highlights the provisions that appear ambiguous and provides a view on a number of outstanding policy issues. The most significant issue relates to the management of employer risk and exit debts. MPF put forward a view that there should be provision for funds to establish separate funds and ring-fence liabilities to the relevant employees within the pool. This would allow exit debts to be met by the employees within a separate pool rather than being spread across all employers. Section 2.5 to 9 covers the discussion paper on the governance arrangements for the new LGPS stemming from the Public Service Pensions Act. The paper focused on the role of the scheme manager and the timing and implementation of the National Scheme Advisory Board and the local pension boards. The fund response was shared prior to submission and is attached as Appendix 2. The most contentious issue for administering authorities is the question as to the requirement to establish a separate pension board to scrutinise the decisions made by the Statutory Pensions Committee. It is the view of many that an additional pension board will lead to further bureaucracy, which may not be required if robust governance arrangements already exist. However, the requirement under the Pensions Act that the pension board should have equal number of employer and member representatives will prove difficult for existing pension committees to also undertake the role of the board. This is due to restrictions under the 1972 Local Government Act, which preclude non-elected members sitting on committees responsible for regulating financial decisions. Therefore, the concluding opinion was that an effective governance framework would best be achieved by the separation of the two bodies, with different members assigned to the scheme manager role and the pension board. DCLG will issue a statutory direction to be applied consistently across the scheme. Section 2.10 to 14 summarises the comments made within the fund response to the consultation on councillor access to the scheme, which is attached as Appendix 3. The overall opinion is that the fund supports the continued participation, although access should be maintained at the discretion of the employing authority, allowing individual councils to consider local needs and circumstances. Section 2.18 raises members' awareness of a guarantee issued to pension funds from the Secretary of State of Education to indemnify funds from loss if an academy closes. The purpose of this guarantee is to ensure funds treat academies equitable to local authority schools when setting employer rates, and also to underpin proposals to amend the LGPS regulations to allow academies to be ruled by local authorities. In the absence of definitive guidance, funds have taken approaches when setting funding strategies for academies. MPF treats academies consistently to local authority maintain schools by allocating the same deficit contributions and recovery periods post-conversion, which is in accordance with the DFE's principle of fair funding. However, the guarantee does appear to have flaws, as the DFE reserves the right to withdraw it when liability ceilings are exceeded or due to policy developments. Until more details are released, officers are of the opinion that this guarantee does not change the funding stance already taken. Although as part of the 2013 evaluation process, officers will be reviewing the governance of all employers, including academies, and reassessing the funding approach and recovery periods. Section 3 refers to the risk that the government will compel administering authorities to fund academies on a basis that assumes that the guarantee provided by the DFE will totally eradicate the risk of any unrecoverable debt, when the guarantee in its current format is limited and may no longer be earned as much as required. Section 7 notes that there will be increased financial resources required if the regulations require a separate pension board to be set up, and it's also estimated that the fund will be charged an annual levy of between is 3,000 to 5,000 per annum to cover the cost of the scheme boundary ward. The recommendation is that members need to report and take any questions.
Thank you. Okay, members' views, comments, questions? Okay. And we're asked to note that report, is that agreed? And Yvonne, can we thank you for all the work that's been done there? 3 very comprehensive letters to DCLG throughout the summer, so thank you very much on behalf of everyone. Thank you. Okay, I'm moving on now, colleagues, to agenda item 7, which is the future structure of the LGPS. Peter.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. This is the report on page 67, and it updates members with the latest developments relating to proposed changes to the structure of the local government pension scheme and seeks approval for a proposed response to the DCLG's call for evidence. Under section 2, we set out the background and key issues. It goes back to 2011 when the Hutton report was published, and at that time his report made clear that the benefits of cooperative working between local government pension scheme funds should be investigated further. In May this year, the LGA and DCLG held a roundtable event considering the potential for increased cooperation within the LGPS. And then at the National Association of Pension Fund Conference on the 22nd of May, the local government minister, Brandon Lewis, indicated that he intended to consult later in the year on law principles for change. And in order to do that, he issued this call for evidence for which a response is proposed. Under 2.4 we cover the high-level objectives, which are around dealing with deficits and improving investment returns, and there are also a number of secondary objectives which are set out there. The fund's response is attached to Appendix 1, and the response addresses 5 questions which were incorporated in DCLG's paper. But the main considerations that we draw out in our proposed response is firstly that we feel the current governance arrangements within the LGPS, where pensions committees are principally comprised of locally elected councillors, already provides a high level of accountability to local taxpayers and interested parties. The fact that the fund believes that the great majority of efficiencies and cost savings can be realised through collaboration and joint working without the need for a formal merger of local government pension schemes. With regard to investment performance, there's little objective evidence to suggest that the larger the fund, the better performance that is achieved. Although existing data does suggest that pension funds need a minimum size for a specialist in-house investment resource to be viable. Larger funds tend to have more cost-effective administration, but focusing purely on costs risks overlooking some aspects of quality that are less obvious but valuable. So we expand that to say that it's really a local decision around how much is spent, for example, on communication or on other exercises which improve our data quality or information for the actuary, which aren't just taking account of looking at the overall cost of the fund. And again, we make the point that investments rather than administration is far more significant in terms of the overall impact on costs. And we believe that specialist in-house resources, which was one of the questions asked, does provide for